Hello and welcome to another episode of the Access VFX podcast. This is episode 38. For this pod, we've gathered Black and ethnically diverse members of the visual effects and animation community to put out a recording as a response to current events, namely the death of George Floyd at the hands of the Minnesota Police Department and the subsequent rallies and protests that have erupted globally against police brutality and racism. Access VFX, and it's important that I put this out, is Access VFX was founded on getting stuff done or getting shit done. I might get edited for that, it's not that bad a word. But that's what we were founded on from day one across all of our action-oriented initiatives. And we'll continue to strive for a truly inclusive creative industry where diverse talent can and will thrive. Those of you that attended our Industry Connect events over the last few years with the mighty We Are Stripes will understand the importance of ethnically diverse role models, or as we like to call it, see it, be it. So for this episode, with everything that's happening at the moment, we felt that it's our duty to talk to our friends and host another Industry Connect. This is ultimately our fourth Industry Connect in many ways, our first virtual one, but an Industry Connect nonetheless. And no different to any of our Industry Connects, it will come as no surprise that our co-host for this episode is Nene Parsotam, We Are Stripes co-founder, Vine Creative's Executive Creative and Art Director, and of course, Access VFX board member. So Nene, would you like to say a few words?
Hi, yes. For those of you who have listened to the Access VFX podcast, I've been on a few of them lately. And also, as Simon has mentioned, we've worked with Access VFX since its inception. And we have always been about inclusivity, especially in terms of ethnic diversity. So this podcast is quite close to my heart and close to the heart of my co-founder, Hayden Dana, as well. Say what's up. And yeah, we're going to just crack on. Because this is partly a See It, Be It podcast, as we always tend to do in terms of these events, as it were. It would be great if we just went round the grid, as it were, and have everyone introduce themselves, please, and just give us a little bit of an insight into what it is that you do in the industry. So we'll start with Prince.
Hello. Hey, my name is Prince. I'm currently in my second year as a compositor at Framestore London, but I've been there since 2017, I think, doing paint and roto, and then I moved up into the comp department. Before that, I freelanced for like a year doing P&R. I was at DNEG for a few months, but mainly at Milk. So yeah, I've been doing that for the last couple of years. And a compositor, no one shoot me, because I know there's a lot of compositors here, if I explain it badly, but we basically just layer images together, combining real life plates or real life videos and stuff that's done in CG and trying to integrate them together to make them look realistic.
Fabulous. Would you like to tell us some of the kind of like really cool projects you have worked on, those you're allowed to actually mention?
The biggest ones, I'm a massive like Marvel nerd, so we got to work on all the Marvel stuff. Infinity War, Endgame, all that was really, really cool. I think that, like, yeah, getting to work on the Marvel stuff is like been the biggest stuff for me personally.
Fantastic. No, I'm not jealous at all. No, not even a little bit. Not even a little bit.
It was painful. It was painful, but it was fun as well.
It must have been amazing. Must have been an amazing experience. You know,
really
to be part of something that big. You know, awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Fabulous. So Anne, we have Anne next. Go for it, Anne.
Hi, I'm Anne. I'm a VFX producer and also the central production manager at DNEG. Been at DNEG for coming up to 3.5 years now. And before that, I worked in the theme park industry, producing sort of content, media for the theme park industry. So roller coasters, basically, anything you see on those like screens when you go down a roller coaster, kind of produce some of that, and immersive content. So a bit of VR and AR as well, I did. And then before that, I worked at the National Space Center doing full dome 4K production in Leicester for about 3 years as well. And before that, way before that, about 10 years ago, I worked in advertising, sort of producing. So I've kind of produced in sort of different areas of creative media, but I've kind of focused in VFX in the last sort of 3.5 years, and I've been at DNEG. Producing is essentially getting the show done, being the good guy and the bad guy. So sort of, you know, managing the client in terms of budget and schedule, but also managing the artist in terms of creative intent and schedule. So yeah, I love what I do. I wanted to be an artist when I started, but someone told me to look at producing because I like to organize stuff, and 10 years later, I'm still doing it, or 11 years later, I'm still doing it. And then as a central production manager, I kind of look at the process for the TV department at DNEG. So looking at sort of processes like how we use shotgun in the department, to how we sort of do our bids, and all our sort of documents that sort of have to tie in with the different processes in the business, making sure that that's consistent, not just in our site in London, but also across sort of all our sites in Vancouver and in India and so forth. So that's what I do.
Fabulous. You mentioned that you've done production over slightly different kind of sectors, as it were. Is there a difference between, say, producing for VFX as opposed to producing for, say, advertising? Could you explain the difference?
VFX is a lot more fun than advertising.
I
mean, obviously, advertising is a lot more fast paced. So, you know, when I was doing advertising, I was doing probably 7 projects at the same time in a time frame of like 4 to 6 weeks, for example. Producing, you're doing like a show for possibly a year sometimes. So I just finished Alex Garland's Devs, and that, you know, I worked on that for like about 14 months. So it's a lot longer. There's a lot more detail that goes into it. The budgets are bigger. In full dome, for example, producing for that, it's a very niche industry. So you're doing 4K full dome production. And that's mostly going to be, if you don't have a planetarium, you won't be able to actually see the work. So that's very sort of like bespoke content, very, very niche, mostly kind of educational content for like science planetariums, and like, you know, like educating about like the universe and stars and, you know, galaxies and things like that. But we also kind of did like bespoke things for clients like Schindler in Switzerland. So it's very, very different.
Amazing.
And budgets are different as well.
Yeah, having that distinction is good, because in the past we've had people who are producers elsewhere, say in music or advertising, and they will assume that producing in, say, VFX industry is the same. So it's good to kind of have that distinction. So no, it's not. No, thank you. Okay, who's up next, Simon?
We have Hannah.
Hi, I'm a look dev supervisor at Blue Zoo Animation Studio. I've been there for almost 5 years. Before being a look dev artist, I was a lighting and compositor. And yeah, I just kind of been at Blue Zoo ever since I graduated. In terms of what look dev entails, I know it kind of mean different things in different studios, but for us at Blue Zoo, it's in the pre-production stage where we define a look. So for example, whether you want to make a show look like realistic and stop motion. Other times we may have a show that we want to look like toon shaded, like comic book. So, you know, you could say like Spider-Verse-esque, you know, sort of exploring different styles and trying to find what the client wants. And sometimes the client doesn't know what they want the look to be, and so we sometimes propose, you know, explore and propose like what style the show, like the 3D show, should look like.
Oh, fabulous. And any cool projects you've worked on recently or allowed to tell us about?
A recent one that got released is Adventures of Paddington. So the 3D series on like Nickelodeon that just got released, and I've worked on a few of like Pokemon Go adverts, and yeah, just like a few.
Nice. So yours is animation based, isn't it? As opposed to, or is it VFX but with animation? Sorry, again, sometimes it's good to know the distinction.
It's mainly animation for animation. Sometimes in the commercial department, we may have like a blend between the two. So for example, for Pokemon Go is sort of a live action play, but the characters, you know, the Pokemon themselves are 3D, of course. But yeah, mostly it's sort of fully 3D, you could say, in the likes of, you know, like Pixar and Disney, but more for like children's TV shows.
Cool. No, nice. Awesome. Thank you. Simon, who's next? Who's on your list? Who's on the list?
Michael Morgan.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
So, yeah, my name is Michael Morgan, and I've been animating since 2000, from video games to TV commercials. And in the last 8 years, I've been working in visual effects, doing animation for films. And that entails, like, actually, I worked with Prince on Tarzan. I worked on shows like Tarzan, Black Panther, a lot of Marvel films, Guardians of the Galaxy. Recently, I was leading on Artemis Fowl for Disney.
Nice, yeah.
So, that hasn't come out yet, but it should be out this month. So yeah, quite a few films, like I said, over the last 8 years in visual effects. And that's literally animation, is bringing characters to life. So that's what I do.
That's amazing. So you've been an animator for like 20 years?
Yeah, 20 years.
Amazing. Artemis Fowl comes out next week, by the way.
All right.
Yeah, I've been keeping that. I've been waiting for that film. I read the books, and it's kind of it's actually quite cool. So I'm interested to see how it is. That's really cool.
And I should note, Michael came to our first Industry Connect way back.
You didn't you, Michael? Did you?
That's where we met.
Yeah, I didn't realize it was the first, but yeah.
We did other Industry Connects, but in this phase, it was the original Stripes kind of Access VFX combo. So
yeah. Feels like ages ago, honestly.
Was it?
Yeah, it was actually, to be fair. Yeah. So who's up next, then, Simon?
I know, right? So next is Lorraine.
Hi, my name is Larry Bata, and I'm a digital compositor working at DNEG TV. And I've been at DNEG TV for last 4 years, about 4 years. Even though I got in the industry, I started back in 2006. When I started, I was the youngest and the only girl back then when I was studying at Escape Studios. And but I haven't been working consistently because of some personal problems and issues I had. I wasn't able to stay connected to the industry, and also I got married young age and I became a mother, so I had a family. So overall, I've had like 5-6 years gap in my career. But then I moved to Barcelona as well after my marriage, but then I got back to London, and I have been since then working at DNEG. Some of the latest projects I've been involved in, like Altered Carbon, Netflix Altered Carbon, Doctor Who, 007, No Time to Die, and Tenet. Christopher Nolan's Tenet is my
Sorry, I can't wait for that. Sorry, can't wait for that. Sorry, please continue. Sorry.
And Fast and Furious. So yeah, I've been pretty much, as Prince already explained, compositing, where you just bring all the assets and different elements together, 3D and 2D elements together. We put them all in the final shot and send it out to our clients. So that's what we as compositors do.
What does that mean, sorry, when you say 2D and 3D elements? When you say, if you're working on a film like, say, Tenet, what would be a 2D element and what would be a 3D element? Would the 3D element be what's been shot, or is it something that you create, or whatnot? What does that mean?
I'll speak in general about my job, but not any particular. I'm not allowed to speak about any.
No, of course. I just trying to explain the concept.
In 3D, because the work through goes through the pipeline, so it has to go through the different animators, the layout process. Where 3D animators, a modeler is gonna build, for example, a Godzilla or a monster, and then we have rigging the whole character, and then we have an animator that's gonna animate the character, and then we as compositors, when we get the live action footage, we bring all these 3D elements or even 2D elements like different smoke elements, for example, or fire elements that's separately shot and provided to us by clients, or we have it in-house. So we can put them all together and just address what the clients actually want in their final shot. So that's what we do. We just bring everything together and make it more real and photographic looking. Yeah.
Gotcha. It's just trying to discern what is like a 2D and 3D. For example, like you said, the smoke or particle effects or whatnot. Yeah, that is something you would layer. Gotcha. Yeah. Cool. All right. Thank you. I think, Mark, you're up next.
Hello.
Hey.
So I'm Mark Pinero. I am a filmmaker and visual effects artist, sometimes director and producer when I work through my own company. I have been working in the business for 30 years. And I began in 1990, if I quickly run through this without boring you. So I began my filmmaking career being trained by a gay experimental avant-garde filmmaker called Paul Bush, who I think is still working today. And then I, in the 90s, spent a lot of time volunteering on film sets, probably about 30 free productions, non-paid productions. Probably the most notable one would have been Idris Elba's first acting job, which also involved another producer who's still working today called Io Davis. For money, I worked in the TV studios. My first job was a runner in Soho, and then I moved into television studios. I worked at NBC, MTV, VH1. I ran the libraries there for what felt like an eternity. It felt like it was never going to end. So in my downtime at NBC, I freelanced. I worked as a production assistant with a chap called Greg Burke on the show called The Scene. At VH1, I used my downtime to make a promo for the channel, which went on to win a Promax Award. Then at MTV, I was a writer and worked my way up to associate producer. I left there, and for the last 5 years of that decade, I worked as an actor, which with a chap called John Rogers and Russell Brand, who you know, and we did a lot of political satire under the name Soapbox Cabaret. And then when all of that, when my life just started to get too poor, I tried to get back into filmmaking and retrained in 2000 in digital effects. And I spent most of that decade at Escape Studios, where I trained up the vast majority of people working in the compositing community in London. And I finished that off in around 2010, where I then left as a freelancer. And within a year or so, I was in China, and I made and directed my first feature film in China. And then the rest of the decade, I worked through my own company. And for the last 5 years, I've pretty much just been freelancing and jobbing around Europe as a gun for hire, working on such productions as Guardians of the Galaxy or Captain Marvel or Game of Thrones, or most recently, along with Larabe, Christopher Nolan's Tenet.
Flipping heck. Wow. You haven't really done that much, have you, Mark? Yikes.
And that wraps up another Access VFX podcast.
We're finished. Yeah, exactly. Finished. That is amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Amazing. Wow. Good work. And how's no, let's move on. Sorry. Who's next? Oh, it's Hayden. Hayden, you're next. I
don't know how I compete with all of that.
Yeah, exactly. Crazy.
That's a show to follow, but I'm not as exciting as you guys. I work in social media, so I'm a social media strategist for the Arts Council, and also one of the co-founders for We Are Stripes. I've been doing social media probably professionally for about 6 or 7 years. Before that, I was in music. Went Glastonbury, performed at Glastonbury, Camden Crawl, been to South by Southwest, all kinds of things like that. And now, fundamentally, I'm positively about trying to change the narrative and trying to create a new direction for Black, Asian, minority ethnic people. So that's kind of my biggest drive in life right now, if I'm honest with you. And my day job's at the Arts Council, where I'm a social media strategist.
Now, Hayden kind of like plays himself down. He's an absolute ideas ninja. Honestly, he's so good. He comes up with our campaigns and our strategies and everything else. He's absolutely brilliant at what he does, and like a pillar of Stripes, honestly. So yes, awesome. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Right, Simon, who do we have next?
Over to Kenny.
Hey, I'm Kenny Ade. I am a motion designer. And I've been doing it for about, I want to say like 8-ish years now. I first started as an intern at a really small studio in West London, really close to where I grew up. And after a year, about a year of doing that, I thought, you know what, I think I can do this. So I went freelance for the first year. It scared me completely. So I went into a full-time role for another really small studio, and that was kind of where I got into Soho in general and like the whole environment of the creative scene in Soho. Continued working as a motion designer there, but that was where I kind of worked on a lot more editing. So as well as being a motion designer, I'm also like an editor and an illustrator, and I do kind of dabble in other things as well. But after doing 4 years of that small studio, I went freelance again. And then an opportunity kind of came up with joining a bigger studio, which I was really interested in joining for a long time, which was The Mill. So I joined The Mill. I stayed there for almost 3 years, and only recently, I think it was just the start of this year, February this year, I left The Mill to go freelance again. Wow. So I'm freelance now.
Fabulous. That gives you a lot of rich experience, isn't it, when you're freelancers? Yes,
a lot. Yeah, especially especially when you're going around and you do because I was being a freelancer as a motion designer and an editor as well. So it was interesting to see the types of briefs you would be given and the types of, I guess, what types of clients you would get for editing and for illustration and for motion design as well.
That's right, yeah. And how different some agencies or companies were, and then how similar they were as well.
Exactly.
Yeah, my freelance career was about 10 years, which I actually loved. I did like it, but it had its own challenges. It'd be good to hear about them later on.
Yeah.
Is it Shanae? Shanae, I think you're up next. Did I say your name right?
Yeah, Shanae. Awesome. Hi, I'm Shanae. I currently work at Escape Studios, which is part of Pearson College London. I work in the marketing department. I've been working there for a year now, but I also studied there and graduated in May last year from the visual effects course. So that's kind of briefly what I do. I'm not an artist or anything, but I do really like the visual effects industry. I didn't want to leave the industry, so I thought where my strengths lie are more in a marketing department. So yeah.
Awesome. Bimpei, lovely Bimpei.
Meet myself. Hello.
Yeah.
I'm Bimpei Aliu, and I'm currently a concept artist at Industrial Light and Magic, or ILM, as we're known. I've been at the company now for 4 years, officially as of last month. And I started there as work experience, which I did for a week, and then came back to the company as a runner. And then from there moved on to be in the art assistant role, and then from there moved up to be now a concept artist. So it's I've kind of gone through all stages so far, pretty much whilst I've been there. And in terms of concept art as a role, at least how we work at ILM, we work at all stages of the production pipeline. So we work in pre-production, production, and then post-production. And so we will usually be the people that, the art department will be the people that design the environments, characters, creatures, kind of anything that has a look to it, and we will be asked to design that, especially during the early stages of the production. We'll come back for post-production as well if we're working on something that's like a magic effect and the VFX supervisor's got a specific look in mind, or there are any changes that are done to like characters' environments, then they tend to come back to the art department, and that'll be something that we also work on to basically get the look and the feel right for what's needed for the picture, and also to get across the ideas of what the director's looking for.
Amazing. So you start right at the beginning of a project, isn't it, Bimpei?
Yes, pretty much. So there are times where, so for Aladdin, for example, we were working on that at least a year before it came into the studio, and then by the end of the production, by the time the film was released, we've been working on it as an art department for about 2 years.
Wow.
Nearly 2.5 years. Obviously, it just depends on how long a production's running for, but yeah.
Yeah, because I think people don't realise that there is actually a department that has to look after the look and feel of a.
Oh yes.
Yes, especially if it's heavily conceptual, like I don't know, like Blade Runner or whatnot.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. You don't just pull ideas out of the air; they have to be created, isn't it?
Yeah, and that can be a long-term process. Like you can be working on a character or creature design all the way from the beginning right until the very end. Those kind of ideas, a lot of those ideas are changing and fluctuating quite frequently, or some just stay as they are. Some directors come in and have a completely firm idea of what it is that they want and what they're looking for, and we kind of like run with that, or sometimes that changes as the production goes on. Sometimes we can be quite influential in terms of the overall story. Again, a director may come in and they know exactly what's going to be happening in sequences, or sometimes they may look to us or ask us, okay, well, I know what the A and the Z is going to look like, but there's still scope for what might happen in the in-between.
Wow.
There's going to be a sequence where a dinosaur is chasing a human. What will that sequence look like? What will these people be interacting with whilst they're being chased by the dinosaur? What kind of elements can be added in to make the story work?
Gotcha. So it's like it is an ongoing process, isn't it? Just like you said, isn't it? You don't just finish once you've done it. It's like all through the movie, right up to post-production.
Yeah, pretty much. And it's highly collaborative. Like we work with, although we sit slightly outside of the pipeline, we still work very heavily with everybody else within the pipeline. So we still work with effects, we still work with compositors, we still work with modelers. A lot of the times we're sharing assets between each other. There are definitely some departments that we may not be connecting with as much, like lighters, but that's just due to what assets we tend to need to be sharing between each other.
That's right. Awesome. Thank you, Bimpei. Awesome. And finally, Louise, tell us what you do.
So I've just basically finished my integrated masters at Escape Studios. It was in VFX. The first 3 years were just kind of doing visual effects, and I specialized in 3D modeling and sculpting, and I did texturing as well. And then for my final year, I worked on a games project, Novem, which was a really interesting experience for myself because it was the first time I'd worked in a games pipeline. And yeah, so that's what I've been doing.
How was it? What did you do when you worked on the games?
I basically, it was kind of like we had to make a game, and so like the first few months from around September to December was mostly about business building and kind of researching and putting it all together. And then from about January up until like we finished like end of May, that was the artistic side. So we basically did all the models. I did, for the first time, I got to kind of try out some concept art as well.
Amazing.
And so we did like low poly. It was a low poly game, and we kind of had to make as many models as possible and then texture them, substance paint, and then put them in Unreal.
Amazing. I mean, oh, did you say Unreal as Unreal Engine?
Yeah, Unreal.
Oh, fabulous. Marvelous. Cool. All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for introducing yourselves and letting us know a little bit about what you do. So we're going to kind of go into like the meat of the conversation now. And it'll be interesting to hear from all of you. What has your experience been like in the industry as someone from an ethnic diverse background or black background, in light of things that has happened in the States and the current kind of like racial climate? I'd like to hear when it was good or bad. What some of the experiences that you've had? It'd be good for us to hear them. So I'll just open it out to the grid, as it were. Whoever wants to go first can go first.
So it was so nice to be asked to talk about this, and I think it's one of these opportunities to speak honestly about it and to really kind of structure your thoughts and to really get a nice, clear argument put forward. So I had to write a bit of this down, to be honest. So here we go. First of all, I always see that everybody kind of understands that the film industry, television industry is a very exclusive area of work to be in. It's quite a privileged area to be in comparison to, other jobs in society. And my experience in the industry as a non-white is one where once you get into that industry, you find yourself entering into a bit of a game. And there's a rather large contingent of people that out there in the industry that are playing this game. And I guess from now on, I'll refer to this contingent as they, so I don't have to keep saying this large contingent. I just don't want to generalise and say everybody. So
no, of course, clear. Yeah.
Okay, and it's a game I think that's been played for so long that it's what people mean when they say, the situation's always been like that. And it's a game that's been forgotten about, as it's been banned for years in playgrounds, and it started as far back as Enoch Powell's Rivers of Blood speech, and in that speech where he stated in 20 years' time, a black man will have the whip hand over the white man, amongst other things that he said. And this game being played is a very strategic game, a bit like a Sun Tzu Art of War manuscript. And it's a strategic version of the playground game British Bulldog, is how I would describe it. And they play it like it's a war that they're fighting. If we let one of them in, then they'll all start coming in. And that's basically what it is. It's a way of being able to maintain control over the opportunities in that industry and only let it available for the white citizens, basically, of the country, and to try to prevent as many black people or non-white people coming through as possible, because it's an area of privilege and they don't want to spread it and share it and kind of dilute the privilege that they've got control over. And the game is systemic. I mean, it's been played even today throughout society, from schools to workplaces to government institutions. And the reason why we don't say anything, it isn't because, like they think, we don't know that this game's being played. The reason we don't say anything is because the game's rigged. And it's rigged to a double-edged sword. If we don't say anything and we keep quiet, then they continue to manipulate the situation to their advantages. And if we do choose to say something, then you're amongst such a majority of people that will support a notion to perpetuate a reputation against you, that will single you out as a troubled individual who's playing the black card and has a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah.
And because that threat of that reputation strikes fear in people from ethnic backgrounds, we let them get away with it by not saying anything. We're too scared to say something when it happens, when we experience it. So the best solution all round, which is given to most black people who make it into the industry or non-white, is to encourage yourself to shut up and recognise that you're benefiting from privilege, and to be smart enough to know when you're onto a good thing. The reason, that's maybe enough at this point to stop there.
Yeah, but I completely understand what you're saying, especially about the if you do start to speak up against when you see things kind of like being done the way that they've been done, you are deemed aggressive, or you have a chip on your shoulder or whatnot, even though you are standing up for an injustice or standing up for someone else, you're seeing an injustice being done too. So that I completely understand. Does anyone else want to share any of their thoughts or any of their experiences?
We have Anne who put her hand up. Anne, would you like to say a few words?
So I'm probably going to speak from a woman's perspective,
Please
and
do.
more from like a Black woman's perspective. And I think as I've grown more in my career, I've been fortunate, I would say, to sort of find my voice a bit more. But if I go back 10 years, exactly what Mark is saying, I was just like, and it's funny how this thing, it just conjures up so much emotion. Like I can feel my stomach churning now, just trying to remember some of those experiences. When I was the only female producer and a Black producer in advertising, the treatment was just like, it was exactly that. It was like a playground. It was like the British Bulldog, and it's like, you're not playing that game, so you are already the odd one out. They're already like, you're already outnumbered because you're not playing that game, and because you're not willing to play that game, they make it even harder for you, right? But as I've kind of grown in experience and I've been able to be a bit more vocal, it's exactly what you're saying. Then it's like just a bit bossy.
Yeah, because I've got that,
exactly. A bit too loud, sort of thing. And I think just because of where I've come from, and because of and I won't go too much into detail, but because of all the bad experiences I've had of people not having my back, I can count probably in the last 11 years the people that have had my back at work that are not Black. Like they would like, it's not up to 10 people, and this is going back 11 years, hand on heart. So it's really painful, and like, for me, I'm more sort of like empowered now to be a voice for those people that are just starting in the industry. So people like Louise, that's just graduating, I think like we who are a bit more senior, a bit more experienced, have to be like the megaphone for those people. We have to try and be a bit more active and sort of mentoring them, because I don't want what happened to me to happen to a lot of other Black girls, but I also want them to have those opportunities. I don't want them to feel like they have to be silent in order to get those opportunities. Like that's not what we should be promoting. But I totally resonate with what you guys are saying. It's just the system is rigged against you, and when you try to speak out, you're just, first of all, you're outnumbered, because how many Black people are actually working in the company? I've been the only Black person working in the company of like 120 people. Like 0.001%. So how do you even get to be heard? And then when you do try to be heard, it's just a bit like, she's a little bit too loud, so let's not. Or they will just like be more fired up to go against you, especially when they know that you're saying the right thing, especially when you're in a position of like management, or when you're a bit senior. That's when it's like, no, why should you be the one to say that, So I think for me, it's like, I'm a bit more confident now to be able to speak up about these things and not back down. And I have a few people that have my back. But when you don't have that, it is really, really tough. It is really hard.
And it's lonely as well, which is why you have such a huge churn rate with people from our community who actually leave some of these industries, because it's like, I can't see anyone above me who I can aspire to, and I don't have anyone around me to support me. So I'm outnumbered, so I might as well just leave the game, isn't it? I think, Michael, I saw you was that little troll doll you put up. So yeah, go for it, man.
I guess what I'll be is just echoing what Mark and Anne said. You're in the industry, especially, I've worked in many studios, say up to over 1,000 people, and I can count on my hands the amount of Black people in there, and that's pretty bad. But when I was first early years in the industry, you think you are in there and you can speak openly, but you realize you do feel like you have to be quiet and you have to keep your head down, or else you're just going to get your neck chopped. Even coming on this, I thought, how far could I really go? Because it's one of those things of, it's easy to lose your job if you say something wrong, or you expose too much, or you say anything that's out of line. Because it's hard to see, when you go into industry like this, Black people beyond, say, entry level, and they don't get promoted that much to leads, senior supervisors and stuff like that. So you wonder to yourself, how come they're not going to that level? How come they're always they're not even in core teams as well. Like we get hired for jobs, project by project. But when you see the core team, they might not even have not even one Black person in there. So you think to yourself, especially in the UK, in London, you'd think it's a multicultural environment. How come they don't have more of a representation in that sense as well? So yeah, I'm just echoing, like I said, what Mark and Anne said. There's a lot.
There is. Sinead, you had your hand up.
We had Bimpé first, sorry.
Did we? Sorry.
I'm the eye in the sky.
I think you are. Go for
Sorry,
it.
I put it up a while ago. Sorry.
Sorry
I mean, although to be honest, it is kind of again, echoing what everybody says. Like it's, there's, I think, firstly, collectively, we're all feeling this sense of exhaustion.
Yeah.
This isn't something we've known about it for ages. We've been talking about it for ages, but I think the current circumstances with quarantine and everything, adds to that extra weight of everything. And I think we're all beyond exhausted by this point, and beyond exhausted about having to continuously enter spaces within systems that were never set up to support us in the first place, to constantly kind of go into spaces and carry the weight of being the only one, to carry the weight of knowing that your silence is essentially going to be your only source of protection for a certain amount of time, because as the others have said, speaking candidly will either be met with resistance, denial, or at times, losing your job. And that forces you again to be lesser. We already have to walk around the streets almost feeling as if we are lesser, and being constantly told that we are lesser to a certain extent, whether that's via somebody actually saying that to us, or whether that's through what we read or see on the media or hear. And that's insanely draining. And the microaggressions that come with that, there are times where you try to broach the conversation with people and they will shut it down quickly. They will shut it down very quickly. They'll be willing to have conversations about everything except race. And it's not acceptable. It's never been acceptable. And I think, as Mark said, like, it's become it's just normalized, and a lot of people don't want to shift that. They don't want to have to shift that. Yeah.
Sinead, I'm sorry for interrupting you, by the way.
No, that's fine. I guess for me, I've not really worked in the industry for years or had the experiences that everyone's been mentioning. But I guess for me, I guess I can speak in a place from like the beginning. So I guess at university, I was one of few Black people in my classes. And then I've also had industry experience. I have had internships in big companies as well. And when I've got in there, again, I'm quite underrepresented. But it's very weird because I've had many amazing opportunities. Like I got a scholarship, and the person who gave me the scholarship did see me, and then I had to send a video. They did see my name, which isn't, I guess, a stereotypical white name, let's say. I've also got, like I said, 2 summers in a row, I worked in a big company. I also got a job straight after graduating. So I've had amazing opportunities, but I think for me, my experience is that as soon as I got in the door, I've realized that I'm underrepresented. And then I've also seen that, like a few people have just mentioned, that there aren't many people of color in managerial or executive positions that then can boost my confidence to think that's where I can be one day. So a lot of the time I kind of just get to a place where I'm grateful of the opportunity, but then I don't really see past that of where am I going to go or where can I get, because I don't see it. So at the moment I am quite early on in my career. I do enjoy marketing. It is quite different to being an artist in the industry, but at the same time, even so in the company I'm working in, again, there's not many people of color in managerial or executive positions. That even so, again, I'm in a place where I'm like, what's next for me or my other friends or colleagues that are people of color. So that is my experience.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. Yeah. So
we had Hannah with her hand up. Hannah,
yeah.
Did you have anything to add? And then Michael.
I think sort of following on from similar to Sinead, like, because I'm still sort of compared to some people here, I'm sort of still somewhat young in the industry, about 5 years. I've stayed at the same company, and look, I'm very thankful that the company that I'm at has been really supportive about, pushing people, pushing people up in their role regardless of, this color of your skin. But I think I want to sort of like to touch on is sort of my sort of my culture and my background in regards to, I don't know about some people, but I find that within like Asian culture, they heavily sort of discourage sort of creative career options at the very start. And I think just like, you know, pursuing a creative career, people, you know, parents had to discourage it because they want you to have like more financially stable jobs, and it comes from a, you know, place of love. But I find that I knew a lot of friends who were very talented in art, but they had to be persuaded by their parents to not pursue a creative career, and sort of trying to convince parents and educate them that there are possibilities in the creative industry. And for me, when I was quite young, there was a lot of tears and arguing with my parents to try to really convince them that this is the career that I really want to pursue. And yeah, I'm very thankful they, you know, sort of gave me trust and like let me pursue it. But it was a, you know, it was a hard road to want to do it in the first place, regardless of, you know, getting into the industry and sort of studying it.
Yeah, so interesting because even as because I'm Nigerian, my background is Nigerian, and I had the same struggle. I had to really, especially my father, I really had to convince him. He was like, Dad, I'm not academic, because he was a nuclear physicist, but I want to do something that's creative. But I think, and he was just like, well, no, I want you to do something more stable. So I had to kind of like almost fight him on that. But I think that is part of the problem, basically, the fact that it's kind of trying to make the older generation kind of understand that this is a viable career. And once you get into it, you know, it's something that is stable. And the good thing about that is that once you get into it, and if you're able to stay and move up, just like Shanae said, then you would be able to see people who look like you, and then you have people that you can aspire to. So it kind of continues to help. So who was next, Simon? I saw.
Oh yeah, I've got a bit of a lineup now. So Michael, I know you had your hand up. Can I just keep you in my back pocket, because I know you've already spoken. I've not heard from Larabe yet. So can I throw Larabe in first?
Hi. Yeah, so I could kind of relate to Hannah because I'm from Pakistan, and through my upbringing and childhood, I had a very strict family rules in the house. My father wouldn't allow me to socialize or go out of the house. So I would mostly, apart from school, stay home. And I got used to it, and I would prefer just staying home in my corner, just reading books and drawing and watching anime features. And that's how I discovered my passion in art and design. So I also got into meditation at age. So I think it made me a very, very focused person, and I think it also kept me out of trouble and confrontations and arguments with anyone else. So I would just always stay focused what I wanted to do, and just basically reflect on myself. Even though convincing my family, my father, wasn't that easy. It was a struggle, because that's why I had family problems. But we moved to the UK at the age of 14, and that's where my mother, my brother, they supported me, and I got in VFX at the age of 19. And then I knew this is a lifetime opportunity. When I started studying VFX, I was the only girl and the youngest, and I knew I can't be intimidated. This is my chance now. This is my time. And I just went all out. I just gave it 100%. And after the course, which was only like 6 months, I was already offered jobs. The recruiter there, the manager, was also Asian woman, and she was like, I would like to, you know, promote you out there in the industry. I would like to send you out to the industry for freelance work. And that's how I started getting jobs after that at the age of 19, and kind of officially became the only woman and the youngest from Pakistan, because my news went viral as well on Facebook. A lot of people were sharing this picture with me and saying that she has worked on such projects. And I knew that even though I've been so focused and quiet, I know it is so important to take a stand if you see anything wrong in your workplace, or you need to, because I've been doing that again and again for my mother, for my family. We need to speak up. We need to stand up and representation really matters. I think representing my community and showing them that I've been able to reach this far, I think it really, really is important. And I think we all need to get together and fight through. And yeah, that's what I wanted to say. So it's been a struggle within my community, within my family problems that I went through. was mostly a bigger challenge for me.
Can I totally relate? Totally. Who's next? Sorry.
We've got Prince. Prince was going to throw in.
Yeah, very very similar thoughts to everyone else, really. And I think it's been mixed. Like, it's been good and bad. I'm thankful for the opportunities that I have had, and I haven't been in the industry as long as some of you guys have. Like, I graduated in 2012, and then like I think the first couple of years of that was just trying to get a job or running or doing small bits here and there. But someone said something about feeling lonely, and that struck a chord with me, because like, you walk into a company and then you kind of look around and you're like, especially for me being from working class, like my parents came here in the 80s, we're kind of the first generation here, and going to like an inner London school, you walk in and you kind of had this expectation that, oh yeah, I'm going to walk into work and everyone's going to be like me, or people are going to speak the same way as me. And you realize that like, nah, everyone's from Kent. And then it's just like, whoa, it's just like a really strange kind of thing that I had to get used to. And then even then, when I was doing really well and like I'm feeling like I had to work twice as hard as everyone else just to kind of get an opportunity, when they did come, I'd look at like the higher positions and there'd be no one who looked like me, no one who spoke like me, no one, like it just feels kind of lonely, and you just get kind of down. So one of my good friends who I went to uni with, he's half Vietnamese, half German. He kind of grew up in a similar environment to me and went to a similar school to me. He's like my buddy, my work buddy in Framestore, because we can find people hear us talk and they're like, oh, we don't understand what you guys are talking about when you two are together. So we kind of get along, and you need people like that. Like, that representation is so important, because you can't see it any other way. And when there was other Black people in the department or in the company, we'd always get along and always ask ourselves, like, oh, how come we can't see people like us, like as supervisors or as leads or in these higher positions? And I remember I did an internship at the mill, and one of my mates who was on the same course as me, what we used to do every week, there'd be like a list of like a schedule and like new starters or stuff like that. We always used to look at the list to see if we could find any ethnic names. And every time we found an ethnic name, we text each other and be like, oh, there's one in this suite. There's a Black guy in the flame. There's an Asian, da, 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 da. Like, it meant so much to us, so much. And even Michael, how I met Michael, I remember when I met Michael while we was working on Tarzan, I was like, oh my days, there's a Black guy, there's another Black guy on the floor. What? LinkedIn, intranet. I was checking him up. What senior animator? I was going mad. I was like, no, I got to talk to him. So it means a lot, because you do feel like really lonely, and you have good and bad experiences. So you need those things to look at and be like, you know what? Yeah, I can do this, or it kind of gives you a boost to kind of carry on going.
Exactly, and someone to talk to as well. You know, some of my mentees have not been in the industry that I'm in, but they still enjoy talking to me because they know that I understand some of the issues that they've been having. It's just, even just the listening ear is a lot. It does a lot, you know. So
yeah, I've got quite a deli counter of people waiting to speak. So I'm going to go to Michael, because that was a nice segue from Prince's point. So Michael, you had your hand up a few clicks earlier. What would you like to throw in?
All right. No, I was just going to say about, because I've been to Singapore, so I know about how the Asian culture is very much not about, like you said, the elders are more about not doing creative art style. And that's similar to as well, Caribbean, because I'm coming from Jamaican background, my parents. A lot of things, like my mom was okay with it because we were Rastafarians, but a lot of uncles and aunts and the whole thing of we're going to be drawing, there was like, there's no chance, there's no career in drawing, you got to do business. Even my grandparents, like, you got to, they came here to do nursing and stuff like that. So it's the arts for like Caribbean culture, Black being African as well, art isn't really the way they want to go forward. So that's one thing that's quite hard. But also what I wanted to say was, when you do go into the industry, you want to know that you're getting chosen because of your talent, because you've got some counterparts that will say, oh yeah, but are these people being chosen because they're good at their skill, or is it because they're Black? And that's the thing that really puts people down, because you think to yourself, like Prince said earlier, as Black people, all the Black artists that I know, hands down, are amazing, because they have to work that much harder just to even be seen, just to be in the industry. Like, there's animators that I know that are supervisors, and the skill that they have is phenomenal. And you look at them and go, they are extremely that good because they have to be, or else they just won't even be chosen. And those kind of things, you think to yourself, do you have to be the Michael Jordan of artwork or animation just to be able to get a lead position or senior position, whereas someone else could just be average and get that position? You think to yourself, is that really fair? I know you could say it's subjective, but it's one of those things that Black people, Asian people have to work 10 times harder just to get into a senior role.
100%, I would agree with that. And I think it was because so that they couldn't reject you on the fact that your work wasn't good. It's something my mom told me. She said they'll look at your gender, they'll look at your color, okay? So make sure that your work is so good that they can't reject you on that. Because as I often tell my mentees, no one can contest good work. If you're good, you're good. You're good, no matter where you're from, So it's just kind of like the need to kind of prove ourselves again and again and again and again and again is sometimes one of the reasons why we work as hard as we do to get to the level that we get to. So it's like, okay, you can't reject me on the basis of my work. What else have you got? Okay, my skin color. Okay, my gender. Yeah.
Thank you. Louise, you had your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to say, like, some of my own experiences. I can remember feeling like I didn't belong, especially in the first year, and so that was kind of like a struggle for me. And just off that, there's actually I worked as a student ambassador as well, and I actually saw the same experience being mirrored in like a student that was coming up, and she really struggled in the first year. She's just finished her first year, and in fact she kind of considered dropping out halfway, and so I had to it was a nice experience for me to kind of just counsel her and give her some advice. But it's definitely, I think, an experience that's echoed, like you feel like you don't belong. Yeah, so that maybe something else is there's a disconnect in terms of people's understanding of culture, and if they're from, like you said, most people, like we had like a ton of people coming from different backgrounds, and so like they might not have experienced the same things that you might have experienced. So that was a bit difficult, I think, for a lot of people who are like a POC or Black.
Bimpe, you had your hand up earlier.
Yes, I just kind of wanted to extend a little bit what some of the others have said already. In terms of like, I'm from a Nigerian family. Well, Nigerian. My parents like immigrated here in the 80s as well, and they were not having any of me going into the arts. Like, in fact, like that wasn't. I only came into VFX 4 years ago because I was in a completely different industry before. I was working in digital marketing and music. When I had said that I was going to be leaving that because I wanted to help make Marvel movies, because I love that stuff, my parents were just like, what? Like, there's no money there. There's not any, like, they didn't think it was a safe space for me. They didn't see anybody else on the screen or that they knew of behind the screen that they felt would be could even be a role model in any shape or form. They didn't see where I would potentially be supported within that space. And I think it's important that we also kind of mention and remember, like, that in itself can be quite exhausting when you make those moves, and the weight of kind of going into spaces knowing that you are the only one, because for a while I was the only one out of about 300 people, and that the impact that knowing that you have to work hard and keep working harder, knowing the impact and the toll that can have on your self-esteem and your mental health and your confidence, knowing that potentially you are carrying the weight for yourself, carrying the weight for other people in your community, carrying the weight to prove that you can do this, to prove that you don't want to let down your community, to prove to your family, to prove to your friends, to prove to yourself, but also to prove to your employers that, okay, I can do this. Because there's sometimes the worry that if you fail at this, that this will have a knock-on effect for anybody else that looks like you, that wants to come into these spaces, worrying that their worry may be, okay, well, this one Black person couldn't do it, so let's not take the risk on anybody else. And that can be a lot. And again, having those that's what makes it, I think, even more important to have those support structures in place. So it is at least somebody that you can talk to, that you can be able to approach, and sometimes you do have to look further afield to be able to find that.
Yeah.
Hayden, you had your hand up as well. Sorry. It's taken me a while to get through it around to you, Hayden, but
Yeah.
I saw you.
I think there's been a lot of good things mentioned. I think what I've taken from this all already is that it's how clear it is that people need to be able to see someone who looks like them. How important that aspect of things is. Even just the fact that we're on this call now and you can see so many different people from different races and nationalities, and we can see that means we're definitely out there in the industry. It is now more about us being more vocal and being more visible. I mean, even for me, when I met my first mentor, Ete, who now is the CEO at Engine, I found him on LinkedIn, literally. And I remember when I found him on LinkedIn, I was like, wow, there's a black CEO in an advertising agency. And I literally just sent him a message on LinkedIn saying, how do I, like, it's just amazing to see a black CEO. I've never seen this before. He was MD at the time, actually, but I'd never seen someone like that at an agency. And just having that conversation alone was so empowering for me. And then I suppose when you take all of these thoughts to think, there's black people and different races who are going into spaces, feeling all of this pressure before they even start working, before they even start their job. They're thinking, I'm representing my whole race. And if I've got to change the way I speak, I've got to make my voice softer. I've got to move differently. I can't speak in a language that is comfortable for me. And when you think about, you're taking in all these kind of pressures on top of the fact that you're now thinking you've got to do your job, it's a lot to take in. And I think if you're someone who's never experienced that, try and envision what that's like for a person going into a career and then going into a career space and you don't even see anyone who looks like you again. That just really compounds on the issue. So it's kind of agreeing with everybody saying, and just giving my 2 pence on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mark, you had your hand up a couple of times, so I don't want to leave you out.
Just to pick up from what Hayden said, I think really is a good segue. And also what Bimpe said, but for me, and I don't know about you guys, but I never ever feel like I'm the only black guy or the only nigger in the village when I'm in these places. I never feel like that, right? I'm only ever made to feel, I don't walk around with a mirror all the time reminding myself that I'm black. When I go into these places, I feel that I'm amongst kindred spirit. I feel that I'm amongst other digital compositors. I feel that I'm amongst other visual effects artists like myself. I'm only ever made to feel different or singled out and have the pressure that these guys have mentioned because of the daily singling out racist mentions, whether it's, whatever it might be, to identify you as being somebody different to everybody else. And it could be anything from being friendly, talking to a girl there, and then being told, why are you talking to her? Why don't you talk to your own kind? Or, all sorts of things, there's a daily kind of rhetoric that people enjoy basically putting across to you on a daily basis. And it's that makes you feel or remind you that you're the only black guy or girl in the environment. But other than that, I'm sure you all just feel like, hey, when you go home, you're with your family. When you're out, you're with your friends. They've all got different jobs. When you're in work, you're actually amongst kindred spirit and you feel like the rest of them, but they don't allow you to feel comfortable with them.
Yeah, I think I'm going to agree with that, Mark. I understand what you're saying, but at the same time, I do agree with what Bimpe and Hayden has said. I have myself have felt that pressure. I've gone into advertising agencies and they've thought I'm like, either the account handler or the copywriter, because being a black female art director I'm a bit of a gazelle or unicorn or griffin or whatever it is. So I do feel that pressure to kind of represent, as it were, to the point there was times when I was actually changing myself, changing the way I spoke or the way I carried myself and everything else, until I got to the stage that Anne did, basically. And I was like, you know what, this is me, this is my voice, this is my experience, I'm going to use it, and this is basically who I am. So yes, you're right. I think you can go in, and if you're confident within yourself, you can say, do you know what, I'm here, I'm an animator, I'm amongst other animators, so I'm just cool. But unfortunately, it doesn't, just like you said, it doesn't always happen the other way round, and they won't see you as a animator. They'll just see you as, say, a black animator. So it just you feel it. So who was
I've got a few people we need to come back to. So Kenny, you had your hand up 5 to 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, I want to kind of echo what a lot of these guys have said already, but I think my experience is it's been mixed. It's been mixed. So I think when I first started as an intern, when I walked into the studio and you know, it was a studio of 5 people. It was really, really small. I walked in and obviously I'm the only black person there, and I tell them, yeah, I grew up not too far from here. I am from this part of town, and it was just weird. It felt like there was still this disconnect, even though we were all apparently from the same part of town. It felt like there was this disconnect where I could say something and it's like, but this is what I've dealt with growing up in this part of town, and they're like, oh, okay, and just that element of it is kind of disconnect, where even if you are, like Mark was saying, even if you are in the same workplace, there is still going to be that disconnect between the creatives, because you're not all living similar or kind of grouped experiences where some people won't experience it at all in their life, and other people will experience it either daily or monthly or yearly, or will always have it in the back of their mind. And I think what I mean, to pick up on just like 2 more points, what Prince was saying about when he started the mill, I thought about the exact same thing when I joined the mill. And the thing is, I waited until a year after, because I felt, you know what, I'm new. I'm like one of the only black people in the studio. Another black person joined after I started, but I was like, I'm only one of the few black people in the studio, let alone just the design studio. Okay, I'll just keep my head down, do all the work I need to do, try and be as diligent of a worker as possible. And then the next year, I started to pick out new starters that were coming, that were runners, and going, hey, do you need help with anything? Do you need assistance? What are you trying to get into? Who can I direct you to? Who can I talk to get you in? Like they're in. Oh, just jump in, try and see if you can help these people, get them a drink. And then when you walk in, go, oh, that's nice. I like what you're doing over there. And then try and get that rapport, because that's the only way you're going to make it in. Like, that's the only way we kind of have to support each other to get each other in. And just to follow on what a lot of people have said about, backgrounds and cultures and parents being kind of a driving force to push them away from the creative industry. I think I've also experienced that. I'm from a Nigerian family as well. My mum and dad are from Nigeria. They came here in the 80s. And my older brother, is only a year and a half older than me, but he's in the creative industry as well. But he works in the charity sector. And it was very similar for him, who was, my dad was trying to push him to be a programmer and, to be like him, be an IT guy, because that's, it's stable. That's where the money is. But, and my thing, my dad was trying to get me to do something like be a politician, which I really don't know why I should do that. But it was, I think the core thing that was ingrained in this was, you need to make sure you work twice as hard, because it's going to be hard for you. And it was, no matter what you do, if you want to be a doctor, a lawyer, a politician, an IT technician, whatever, try and do something that is going to support you in the long run, but also work twice as hard, because you're going to have to. And I feel like that's a common strand with a lot of the people I've talked to, like especially this week and the last 2 weeks. A lot of the people we've all had the same types of stories of parents or people, family members, people who they look up to, saying to them, it's going to be very difficult for you. They may not tell you directly, like straight to your face, like it's going to be an issue because of this, but they'll say, you need to work twice as hard. You need to work twice as hard, and you understand it. Straight off the bat, you understand it.
Thank you, Kenny. I know Mark's dying to say something. I'm coming to you, Mark.
Very quick.
Go on. I
was just going to say, back to Kenny, I mean, and the others, how often we all recognise that advice that's been instilled in us by all our parents, friends, all our significant others, that you've got to work twice as hard. How many times have you been in a company, and this has ever happened to you, where you've come in and someone's seen you working twice as hard, and they've said to you, don't make me look bad?
Yikes. Anyone, is that?
Can we go to Anne? Because Anne was next in the chopping order anyway. So
yeah,
if you want to take that. I'm coming to you, Michael.
Sorry, I have so much to say, but I'm gonna try and condense it a little bit. I mean, I'm Nigerian as well. My parents still live in Nigeria, so I grew up in a very, my dad was a general in the army, so I pretty much grew up in the army. And I think I don't really blame our parents' generation for wanting us to just have regular jobs, because in Nigeria, you're a doctor, you're a banker, you're an engineer, you're a pharmacist. Those are the things that put food on the table. So that's what they're like, go and do that. That's going to secure your future, right? But look at us. That didn't stop us, right? We're still creatives. So I think it's like we believed in ourselves enough for our parents to believe in us. And that for me, that is what my dad is my biggest fan now. Like, my dad's one of my best friends. So my dad right now will call me and like, what do you do? Help me understand. So what is this producing thing? Initially it was like, what is all this Disney? What's all this stuff you're watching? But it is kind of, you believing in yourself enough for them to believe that, yes, you know what you're doing. And then they're like, you have my blessing, go. So that's what I'll say about just our parents' generation. But one thing you said, Nene, about, your mom telling you to kind of work hard and, your work is what's going to carry you. Don't do it because, don't let them employ you because you're Black, whatever. I once had a boss tell me, I can never catch you out, No, honest to goodness. Right? And he was, you could see him puzzling. He was just like, I can never catch you out. And I'm like, do you know I'm Nigerian? It's like, but it's like, he was saying that because it's like, I was just doing my work. I didn't care about trying to, all the politics, all that, but he was just like, why can't I catch you out? And I was just like, because you're not going to catch me out because I'm doing my job. And I was still, and I'm doing it well. And I was still pretty junior. Like I wasn't, this is going back many, many years, and the work will always speak for you. But I feel still, even till this day that I'm quite senior, I'm part of the management team in DNEG. I constantly feel like I have to wear armor, constantly. And maybe guys, maybe this is different for you. For me, I constantly feel like I can't put my armor down, even when I'm at work, even when I know what I'm saying, and even when I'm like, okay, yes, please challenge me. I still feel like I can't just take this armor off and just be seen, right? Just be seen for like, she's making a point, she's welcome in this space. I always feel like, yeah, you're welcome. Like, yes, you have a seat at the table, but we won't really open the door for you, And it's, for me, it's like, we have so much energy right here. And for me, I keep thinking, how do we keep this momentum and change this narrative? That's what's been kind of going through my mind. But I really do feel like I just constantly have to wear armor.
Yeah, you have to keep it up, don't you? You have to just keep it up. Mark, what you said was just crazy. Personally, I was like, yep. Personally, I don't think that's happened to me, but I have had people do the opposite and say, oh, Nene, the more good work you do, the better I look. So I'm not quite sure how to take that now, honestly, whether that was like, okay.
I mean, sorry, did somebody need to speak?
Yeah, sorry, I'm working for, I want to make sure everybody speaks who's had their hand up. I don't know, Prince, you had your hand up a few times, and then I'd like to go to Michael, and then Sinead. And then we need to think about time, because this is an epic podcast in terms of length. Prince, please.
Yeah, I feel what Mark said about people making you feel like you're different, and it can happen in loads of different ways. It may not be as obvious, but because you are, your upbringing's different, you're from an ethnic background, and most people aren't. They may, even in small conversation, like small talk, or just little jokes that people have, and you're like, oh, I never had that, or I never did that, or I don't get that, or I can't joke in the same way. And you almost have to learn it as you grow up in the industry. You learn how to kind of get down and integrate into those circumstances. And when you do that, and every time you have to do that, even if it's in a small way, it's like a slight in your head. It's like, oh, again, I have to do this, and it gets very, very, very tiring. So I do agree with him. And I just want to say one thing that happened to me which made it stand out, just having a normal week going into work. And at the time where I was, there was another company in the building that wasn't the same as the VFX one. And usually we have to have our passes on show. Mine was in my pocket. So I'm going into the building, and then 2 people go in front of me. They're fine, don't show their passes. There's no one at the door anyway. And then a guy comes downstairs, and then he sees me coming in, and then he kind of stopped me, and then just gave me like the dirtiest look ever. I was kind of like, oh, what are you doing? Where you going? And I was like, oh, I work here. I'm going into the building. He's like, oh, you don't have your pass. I was like, why didn't you ask them why they don't have your pass? Why they don't have their pass? Unfortunately, my boss, the head of my department, was behind me. He was coming back from lunch. So he walked in and showed his pass and was like, yeah, he works it. Like, what do you think you're doing? And the guy just walked in. And then we both just laughed it off. And I got back to my desk and I was like, did that actually just happen? Like, did that actually, like, I couldn't believe it. And I feel like those experiences or things that, you know, happen a lot where you're made to feel different. Even like people mistaking you for the other black guy in the department or the other black, like, I was praying that when I said that, no one started laughing, because I was praying that it was just me. But unfortunately, I can see everyone's reaction and everyone's going mad. But even small things like that, it's like, why does this have to happen? And a lot of those people who were in my department at the time, they both left, and they're not they don't work at Framestore no more because of bad experiences that they had or the way they felt. And that's no diss to Framestore. They've always been great, but it's just, I think, like a build up of things that happened to them. And another thing that I have to say is there was a moment when we went to a big screening room because James Gunn came to see us all, the whole team that was working on Guardians. And I was like, oh, this is going to be awesome. Going to get to see him, blah, blah, blah. Walked into the room, sat down, looked around, and I was the only black person working on the film at Framestore. And then I walked out, and then I had the same thing. I was like, that's crazy. Like, how, it was a big moment, but then I was quickly reduced to zero because I was like, why does this hurt me so much? And I spoke to my friend about it, and she was like, you know what? She flipped it for me. She's like, it's a good thing because at least you're there to represent people like you. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of tried to view it as a positive way. And that's another one of the reasons why I was so determined to get into comp at Framestore, because the comp team there is ridiculous. Like, everyone is so talented. And it was a big deal for me to stick with it and to make sure that I made it. So yeah, it does work both sides, but I feel what you said, Mark, 100%.
Prince. Michael, you've been dying to speak on this, so bringing you back in.
I know. I just want to say, it is hard though, as a black person, to have to represent every black person on the planet. It's a bit much, especially when they ask you, are you Jamaican? No, you're not African. Or are you African and you're not Caribbean? It's like, you know, you shouldn't have to be a person that's representing a whole community. That's black is what is black? Black could be anywhere around the world if you just got dark skin, and that's pretty hardcore to represent. But what I wanted to say was more of, you know, I had an interview one time when I first got into the industry in a games company, and they were asking me, like, do you go to the pub? And things like that, because I don't drink to that degree, it's one of those things, you don't get a job because you don't go to the pub or you don't do certain things like that. And you think to yourself, wow, and this was early on leaving uni, I didn't know that you had to be a certain way just to get in the industry, as in pub culture. That was a different thing for me. So just little things like that that I wanted to just mention.
I'm going to hand to Shanae, and then we're really, really pressed for time. So I'm going to hand back over to Nene to kind of take it from there. But Shanae, you had a point. Make sure it's a good one, because it could be the final word potentially.
I guess it kind of rounds up what everyone was talking about anyways. And like I said earlier about, I'm speaking from quite an early stage, just graduating and just getting into work. Similar to what everyone said, I think we spend more time at work than we do in our own homes, in our culture, surrounded by people who understand us. And I think constantly having to, like we said, refrain from talking about what we did have for dinner on the weekend, the music we listened to, the festivals we've attended, the things we enjoy from our culture. We can speak about it, but then we do feel in a way alienated, or people won't understand. So, you know, we just say, yeah, you know, I saw my family on the weekend. And again, we spend Monday to Friday having to hide that. And if we do mention it, it could either be in a group of 5 and then quickly turns into what they did on the weekend, and the conversation can continue. So I'd probably just say, like, that is a hard thing, is socializing and actually being happy with speaking about what you do enjoy and the activities you do. But I'd probably say a challenge to start doing is having those conversations, because I'm sure that a lot of our colleagues, they are not used to it, so they won't continue asking like, what is that music you listen to? Why do you style your hair that way? Or why is that the activities you and your family get up to? But if you do just kind of, I'm challenging myself to start having those conversations. I'm the only person of color in my team, and I actually mentioned the first time why I style my hair or why I did it on the Thursday so it could look good on the Saturday. And I felt really awkward, but now I feel really happy I did that. So yeah, I'd probably just round it off to say, like, if you do find yourself in those situations, just have those conversations so that hopefully your colleagues it can get normalized to them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, that's a good point, actually, Sinead. It's a good point, and it kind of ties in with what Prince and Michael were saying. So, Prince, when you were just like, "Oh, they mistake you for the other black person," I'm sorry, it was so funny. I'm sorry, it was so funny. So many times we've had that. It's just ridiculous. Like, we all look alike or something. But we are really pressed for time. It's like, we're really pressed for time. So what I'd like to do is just skip very quickly to this last question, and I want to end it on a positive note. Would you be able to give me, just in the same vein as Sinead has done, just one piece of advice that you'll give to someone who is currently experiencing some of the challenges that we've all spoken about and how they can overcome that particular challenge?
I mean, I think, first of all, I just wanted to share something that if you guys haven't watched, it's a beautiful TED Talk by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. She's a Nigerian author, but she did this amazing TED Talk about the danger of a single story. Please, please, please go and just look for it and watch it. It says so much about all the conversations that we've been having and how we can, hopefully change all of our stories to not just be a single story or a combination of single stories. But I think advice that I would give is continue to show up for yourself. Don't be afraid to be authentic. Sinead, don't be afraid to do it here on a Thursday just because it can look good on a Saturday. If you continue to be your authentic self and show up for yourself and continue to use the energy that we have, Black people, we have such energy. It is contagious. That's why we want to sort of just be there for each other. If you continue to show up for yourself, there's nothing that they can do. They will try, but there is absolutely nothing that they can do. So you have to be showing up for your authentic self every day. It's hard, it's exhausting, I'm tired, but we can't be tired, and we have to just keep showing up for each other and for ourselves.
I think you should just, if anybody's in that kind of mindset, just remember that you're so incredible that they've had to rig the system for you for 400, 500, 600 years. So imagine how powerful you must be that they've had to rig the system like that. That's the way I look at it. You must be just such a supreme power that they're so scared of you that they've got to rig the system. I think fundamentally I think this conversation shows there's a lot of us out there, and I think it's just about making sure you're going out there and looking for your community. We do exist. Don't think that you're the only one. You'll be surprised that there's more of us than you actually think. And I found that in advertising, and I found that in digital, and I'm now seeing that obviously now in animation and VFX. We're definitely there. So it's just about going out there, doing a little LinkedIn search, and you'll find somebody. So even if that helps.
So Bimpy, you had your card up.
I think just to extend on what Hayden and Sinead said, continue to show up for yourself. Be, if you can and if you feel comfortable, continue to speak out on things. Sometimes, even no matter what kind of role or position you are in, I think this is an educational space for a lot of people right now, and a lot of people are willing to listen. A lot of people are willing to actually hear us as well. Don't be afraid to kind of air any of what those microaggressions may have been. It's not that every company is out to kind of like do this or do that. I think it's important that we're willing to be heard, and we're willing to kind of speak up as well as and when we feel is comfortable and right for us, and to know that we are all, that there is a community out there, and that we are supporting each other and supporting each other as much as possible, and connecting with each other as much as possible.
Thank you, Bimpy. Louise.
Lovely.
Firstly, I'd just like to recommend this YouTube channel, The Grapevine. They usually have some really interesting discussions about current topics affecting Black people, and they're really good for Black people and non-Black people because they just kind of teach and educate. And lastly, I'd just like to say what Hayden said, just go out and network as much as possible. And find like-minded people. I think one of the best things that happened to me whilst studying at Escape was probably finding Access VFX, because when I went to the events and I found out loads of like-minded people who were interested in the same sort of things that I was, that really kind of opened my mind and kind of gave me a way of planning and finding exactly what I wanted to do other than being an artist. So yeah, thank you.
I think I wanted to recommend a show that I just recently watched called Giri Haji, and the reason I'm recommending this is it's not necessarily a documentary, but I wanted to share a piece of, I guess it's a TV series that got released on Netflix, and it's more about creating more content with different cultures and backgrounds, and that show is great because it's has really interesting, complex character development rather than sort of a token black guy or a token Asian guy. You know, it's genuine, interesting characters from different cultures. Because I find that sometimes people try to represent multicultural in the media, but not in the best way. Like, giving lead characters to like a black person having a really good story behind them. And sort of we as creative, I know that being in the creative industry is mostly seen as fun, but I feel like we should feel a sense of power and responsibility, like the content that we put, like the artwork, make sure it's like diverse and sort of make it, I guess just a wider content of art, and the TV shows that we put out and the work that, the films that we promote and the TV shows that we make to push for bigger, like other cultures. And I think it's already in the process right now, where I think there's a lot of kids, students right now who are from backgrounds, and I feel like hopefully this will help them to give them a lot of confidence, and we as current employees of minority will push to lead the way, hopefully. So yeah.
We've also got Mark.
That's good.
I was going to say that, I mean, as far as advice goes, the main, again, not to be too specific, but try and there's a lovely Native American saying, which is learn by doing, teach by being. And I can only give you experience really from what's happened, what's helped me to get through. And I think the main thing you're going to come up against, I think the main thing that people can use to carry with them is that you have every right to be given a chance to work in that industry, if that's what you want to do. This isn't an industry that belongs to anybody. This isn't a country that belongs to anybody. England's history, Great Britain's history, is a history of migrants, whether it's the Danes, the Anglo-Saxons, the Normans, or the Jewits who came over when they planted their feet on the mud and they all came and mixed together. It's always been a migrant history. This country doesn't belong to any one specific person. So just because it changed about how people came in, they were invited in, the Commonwealth allowed them in, you still have every right to go out there and knock on that door, to get a job. I'm not saying that the country owes you anything. I mean, it's nice to think that you can go through university and tick all the boxes and do Access VFX and get a mentor, and then you can hold up your CV and go, look, I passed the test. That's not necessarily still going to be enough, but you still have every right to do it. So don't let anybody tell you that you're not.
I just wanted to say it's following up from what Mark said about coming into the industry, but it's the awareness as well, knowing that we as artists are here and Access is here. Like, it was one of my friends that let me know about your first event, as it were, where you were doing with Black Panther. And it's that kind of thing of knowing that these things exist, knowing that these artists are in the industry already. And as Hannah said as well, just knowing that there are all these ethnic minority people in the industry, other people out there. We just got to be able to extend the network and let people know that we exist, basically, and that they can get their foot in the door as well through hard work. And hard work doesn't mean, like slugging from nights till day till night. It's about being smart as well. All right. So it's knowing how to be effective as things like that. So my last words are just network and know that you're not alone, and there are people in the industry that are there to help you build.
Fabulous, fabulous. Yes. So, okay, Simon, we can wrap up now. I think I just want to say massive thank you to all of you. Thank you for taking the time to come and speak about some difficult things. I know everything is, some of it is, you know, comical, but at the same time it's not comical, because it's something that you've noticed that we all kind of experience. And if we're experiencing it, and the people who are coming up after us are experiencing it, as well as the people who are currently in the industry. So I think my final thought would be, just to echo what everyone has been saying, is that if you are coming through the industry, even if you're still in the industry, you are not alone. You're not alone. There are those of us who are working to help you. There are those of us who are willing to mentor you. And there are those of us who are willing to be a bit more visible, so that you can see that there are people like you at certain levels, and you can continue to climb, basically. All right. Thank you, everybody.
I'd like to throw in a couple of final points as well. Thank you, thank you everybody as well. That was the easiest podcast I've ever had to host. I mean, then he literally asked one question, and 2 hours later we're wrapping up. So thank you for being so candid and showing such vulnerability, and just being so honest as well. So thank you. On that, part two maybe. There's so much to get through. I mean, I can edit this out if people say no, because we're not live.
No, I think we should do it again. I'd like to see you all again.
Can I have thumbs up from everyone? Bring everybody, get the team back together.
Yeah.
The one thing I've been really impressed with this episode is just the range of disciplines represented. For me, I'm used to doing so many of these when it's artists only, and to have producers, to have marketeers, social media experts, designers, students. It's a concept art. Have I missed anyone out? It's so broad. So just purely as an educational piece for anybody trying to get into industry, it's just this brilliant kind of tapestry of disciplines and opportunities. So I've got you all signed up to part two. That's great. Maybe even do it as a live. Maybe. Yeah, I think potentially. All right. Watch this space.
Okay, enough. I mean, live.
You can do it. You can do it. Cool.
We got this. And the other thing was on the podcast front, I'd be remiss not to shout out Kenny's podcast, Culture in the Craft. Kenny, did you want to do a quick plug for your pod?
Yeah, kind of, I guess.
Right.
I mean, we're kind of on a very small hiatus while we're kind of waiting for some of the stuff to die down. But yeah, we're on a podcast, myself, Larabe, and a few others, on a podcast called Culture in the Craft. And so basically we're just trying to discuss things around ethnic minorities in the creative industries, our challenges, our stories, recommendations, things that we've seen which we thought that could be highlighted, and also interviewing other artists we thought have shone a light on the issue, or who we think need to be spotlighted as well.
Definitely check it out. It's a good podcast as well. I highly recommend it. And in terms of everything we've been speaking about around see it, be it, and role modeling, it's definitely worth subscribing. Subscribe, rate, and review. I'm getting into the podcast hosting now, right? That's what you have to say, right? And just because it's an Access VFX podcast, I really wanted to kind of plug two initiatives that are all around giving back. And if anybody listening, whether you work in industry or whether you're trying to get into industry, is the Access VFX mentoring program. The good thing about it is it's managed by a third party, and if you're trying to get into industry, there is a drop-down opportunity. So if you want to be mentored by somebody from the BAME, the Black community, you can highlight that. And ditto, if you want to be a mentor, you can opt to mentor somebody who is essentially non-white. So I would urge anybody listening to get involved with that. We're always looking for more mentors, particularly if you're in industry. And I'm saying this to people on the pod here now, if anybody isn't currently mentoring somebody, it's a great way to give back. The other one is today we launched our animations summer school, or summer of animation, where there's a wide-ranging, and I should shout out Screen Skills and 3D Ami as well, and Tom Box, who designed the website. So it's the website. Actually, I should shout out two URLs. One is obviously www.accessvfx.com/mentors. No, org.org/mentors. And for the summer school, check out summerofanimation.com. We already have our first tutorial up, and because it's remote, it has such wide-reaching access. Nobody has to buy a train ticket to come to London. So from a socioeconomic diversity point of view, it's brilliant. But we're looking to create it's a grassroots initiative ultimately when it comes to diversity and inclusion, so it couldn't have launched at a better time. So I really wanted to kind of plug that as well. Sorry, it's a bit waffly, but there are two initiatives where young people and people who want to get into industry can connect with industry off the bat. So I wanted to kind of get that out there. Nene, any final words before we shut up shop?
No, I think we're good. Good. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. And enjoy the rest of what's left of your evenings, because that
Thanks, guys.
Significantly. So watch out for part 2 and stay tuned. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you again, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.